Hoops from the Sideline, episode 15. We are in our playoff push with the NBA. It's all NBA hoops all the time on this show today. We'll break in all the playoff matchups. I know
Two weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. Yeah,
we took a week off.
Took a week off.
We were busy guys.
Yeah, we had some busy stuff to attend to, but we're back. Can't miss 2 weeks in a row. We're back in the studio.
And we're better.
Good thing Malik's not here. He would have roasted us for this Utah series.
It would have been.
Yeah. Shout out to Malik, though, a recurring guest on the show. But yeah, let's just jump right into it. We're going to be talking about everything NBA playoffs, the West matchups, the Rockets and the Wolves, Warriors over the Spurs, Jazz Thunder series, which has turned out to be an absolute classic. Then we get the Pelicans surprising sweep over the Blazers. But I think you're the resident Pelicans guy in the building. Here.
I tried to tell you guys that the Pelicans are ready.
But we also, in the East, we have the Raptors in a tight series against the Wizards. They're up 3-2. Boston up 3-2 over the Bucks, another close series. Cavs in another, honestly, probably in the best series in the Eastern Conference. Cavs up 3-2 over the Pacers with some LeBron heroics in that one. And then Philly with the gentleman's sweep over the Miami Heat in what could have been the last game we've ever seen from Dwayne Wade. And then same with Manu Ginobili in the Spurs series. And then if we have time, we'll get into the coaching carousel in the NBA, some movement in Memphis, some potential movement in Atlanta. So we'll get into that if we have time, but we're going to try to stick to everything NBA playoffs today.
And let me tell you. Okay, so
Joey taking control.
This is my highlight of the playoffs right here. We're going to do a little word association, okay? So Chris, I'm going to give you a list and you're going to have to figure out what they all have in common.
Wait, what? This is just okay, wait.
Okay, this is a list of players.
All right,
and now just listen to who I'm talking about
all right.
and figure out how they all compare to each other.
Okay.
Okay,
right.
Here we go. You might be able to get it off the first player. Marcus Morris, Aaron Baines.
I already know what you're talking about.
Greg Monroe, Amir Johnson, Ersan Ilyasova, Jose Calderon, Darren Hilliard, Brandon Jennings, Chris Middleton, Kyle Singler, Jonas Jerebko. There are also a few G League guys that I didn't even mention.
Lorenzo Brown.
Robert Covington. Technically, you could put Ryan Anderson in there. There's guys.
Why could you put Ryan Anderson in there?
Well, okay, never mind.
You can't put Ryan Anderson in there. It's all former Pistons in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
How could you have Ryan Anderson? Because he played under Stan Van Gundy?
And there's some other, like,
G League guys, right?
Weird, like, things that all put them together. But I thought that was really funny. I was watching the...
It's a lot of former Pistons.
It was the Sixers game I was watching, and I saw Amir Johnson, and I was like, oh, former Piston in the playoffs.
Last high school player ever.
There's Ersan Ilyasova.
Ersan has been playing fantastic for the Sixers.
It's kind of funny that, I mean, none of these guys are, like, superstars. They're really good role players at what they do, but just one of those funny little stats.
Yeah, and if you look at, like, Boston, they have Marcus Morris starting, Aaron Baines starting, two former Pistons starting. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy to see your boy Brandon Jennings. Finally, I think he dressed for one game, so that was cool. He didn't play, but he dressed.
Good to see.
But let's get into it. Let's dive into the West first. I want to break down the Houston Rockets over the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves made the playoffs for the first time since 2004, since KG, the big ticket, was in Minneapolis. It kind of went the way you'd expect. Minnesota did win game 3 they won, which was nice to see, get that home crowd going, especially since they haven't seen playoffs in 14 years. But the Rockets handled business. They had a 50-point quarter in game 4.
Yeah, that was insane. I think Chris Paul had like 15 in that quarter. I guess it wasn't that crazy.
Yeah, and game 1, too, if we're going to go back to the first part of the series, Minnesota had a chance to win. If they stole game 1, this series could look a little different. But in the end, Houston won game 1. They won game 2. Minnesota got them on their heels in game 3. But Houston took care of business. Clint Capella has been fantastic. He's that perfect rim runner for this offense. And really, it was everything you expected from the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, and it was everything I kind of didn't expect from the Timberwolves as well. Going into this, Karl Anthony Towns was definitely their best player going in, with Jimmy Butler being injured a lot. And Andrew Wiggins was really struggling. But in this playoff series, Karl Anthony Towns really struggled. There's a couple. He didn't even break double digits.
I think it was like
was it 2 games?
I think it was 2 or 3.
2 or 3, yeah.
I can't remember.
And
exact.
Andrew Wiggins had a pretty good series, comparatively. And when you don't have your main offensive weapon in Cat being down low, and that's kind of supposed to be your advantage over Capella, is that Cat can spread the floor a lot more, and he just struggled. And that doesn't help for the Wolves. They have good guard play, but obviously so do the Rockets. So it's going to be hard, and especially, too, when Jimmy Butler is trying to use a lot on defensive end for this Wolves team, it makes it hard for him to lead the charge offensively. So a lot of their offensive weaponry was just out of sorts. It was a weird thing to see the Wolves. I mean, I knew I saw the Rockets winning this series, but not in the way that they did necessarily.
I expected it. Gerald Green had 21 points and 12 rebounds in game 2. When you have role players like that step up, and anybody on this Houston team, the style of offense they play, that 5 out for the most part, and Mike D'Antoni does this thing in practice where they practice with a 4-point line just to get guys to shoot farther out, get comfortable shooting farther out, and
Right.
you see it on display in their actual games because guys are just Ryan Anderson, for example, he will pull from a good 5 feet behind the 3-point line, and he looks like he's comfortable doing that. And I know Philadelphia's, I believe they've adopted the same thing as Mike D'Antoni, which, I mean, you see a lot of the similarities in Brett Brown's offense. Guys will pull from wherever, especially Robert Covington.
And I think a lot of teams are doing that to inevitably match the Warriors, because that's a style of offense that the Warriors have been known to do. I mean, it's mostly from Steph Curry to shoot the deep 3.
I think it was more so because the Warriors had that personnel first off.
And it's just like the idea of spacing the floor beyond the limits that most people know of being the 3-point line, going even further back. Every year, people step further and further back and shoot it more comfortably. So to get that spacing just makes the defense have to work that much harder, and I think a lot of teams are kind of taking on that same style of offense.
Before we move on to any other series, again, Houston, they advanced to the Western Conference semifinals. They will play the winner of the Utah Jazz-Oklahoma City series, which is very spicy right now, Joe. It's very spicy.
That's my favorite series.
I go back to Cavs-Pacers. I think Cavs-Pacers by a little bit, but these two series are fantastic. Before we get into that, I want to ask you a quick question. Do you think we would have gotten a better series if the Nuggets made the playoffs over the Minnesota Timberwolves?
No, I don't think so. I think it would have been about the same. I thought going into it that the Nuggets were riding high and that they were going to beat the Wolves in that final game of the season. So I kind of expected the Nuggets to make it in, and they didn't. But I felt like they would be kind of similar, where they would test the Rockets at times, but in the end, the Rockets are just too much. The thing that I think the Nuggets have going for them a little bit is that they're a little bit, in my opinion, they're slightly deeper. And they have a lot more weapons from different positions. They have Paul Millsap, they have Jokic, they have Wilson Chandler, and just all these guys that are kind of like those weird in-between positional players. And I think it makes it a little bit tougher for the Rockets to match up against that. But in the end, I still think the Rockets would have won that series 4-1 or so anyway.
Yeah. I think with Denver, I think they match up a little bit better just because they have more perimeter options. They play at a faster pace to match up better with Houston. Because Minnesota, they don't shoot a lot of threes. I believe they shoot the least amount of threes in the NBA. We saw some Derrick Rose highlights, which is good to see.
He came back and he had a couple good games. Doesn't look like the Derrick Rose of old still, but, he looked better.
Yeah, it was nice to see him get some action, especially since we don't know what's going to happen to him after this season.
Right.
Moving on, let's move on to the other side of the bracket. Warriors-Spurs. The Warriors won 4-1. I was shocked this wasn't a sweep. I picked the sweep. I picked Warriors in 4, even with Curry out, just because of how depleted the Spurs team is.
Right. But no, the Spurs gave them a really good test.
And we got a vintage Manu Ginobili game, too.
Yeah, well,
that was awesome.
And see, that's the thing that I saw right out the gate from the Spurs. Game 1, they started a lot of their young guys, and they started to fall apart. They didn't look that good. And I know that you're trying to use your younger guys, get them moving. But as soon as you get that lineup of LaMarcus Aldridge, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, Pau Gasol, Rudy Gay. I think they might not have all been at the same time, but at least like 4 of them were on the floor for the most part together. They seem to play really well together. And I get it, they're veterans and that they can't really go as long. They can't play the 40 minutes that they used to be able to. But that squad was really good. And I kind of wish they could have tried to extend their minutes for those guys, because that team looked pretty good. Like, they looked really cohesive, whereas the younger guys for the Spurs seem to struggle just a little bit. I don't know if it's, you're playing the Warriors, so obviously you're going to have to play your butt off. But the veterans for the Spurs showed up in this series, and I think that's what helped them fight in a lot of these games, and a lot of these games turned out really close.
The final score didn't seem close, but for the most part, throughout the games, they were
Right,
close.
yeah.
The Warriors pulled away the last few minutes. Like, Warriors won by 21 game 1, 15 game 2, but games were closer. LaMarcus Aldridge has been fantastic for the Spurs this season.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really unfortunate. I mean, our condolences go out to the Popovich family. Greg Popovich lost his wife, Erin Popovich, to a health battle, and he did not coach the final 3 games?
Yeah, I think it was the final 3 games.
Final 3 games. And assistant coach Ettore Messina, he took over. He's a coach in the running for a couple of jobs. But that's another thing the Spurs had to go through, that just their backs were against the wall from the get-go.
Right, and that might have even inspired some of the veteran guys, knowing Popovich for so long and being really close to him, especially Ginobili and Tony Parker.
They may have played a factor in that game.
Right, so it might have helped them out. But, yeah, that was a rough series for them. Obviously, it's a really hard matchup. You get the run-and-gun Warriors versus these veteran Spurs with a mix of really young guys. So, I don't know. I mean, it went as expected, and the Spurs played a lot better than I thought they would, honestly.
Yeah, and so that's it for the San Antonio Spurs on their 2017-18 season. I want to get your final thoughts on the Spurs heading into the summer, what they need to do, what they can do, and what they will do with Kawhi Leonard. What do you see? What do you make of it, and what do you see happening to start next season?
It's pretty crazy. I don't get it at all, and obviously I'm from an outside perspective. It doesn't really make sense to me that you have 2 different, like this. Supposedly it's the Spurs medical staff and
Kawhi's own
grouping
Yeah.
that have differing views on how to go forward with his health. And obviously you want the best for him going forward for his career. But some of the reactions that he's had, some of the reactions the Spurs have had, have not seemed good, and they don't seem like they have a good relationship going right now. I think they need to move on from Kawhi Leonard. I think
he is a top 3 player in the NBA.
No, I understand that, but it's hard because they're already starting to break a relationship that you thought. Kawhi Leonard is one of the most humble, just kind-hearted guys, and I'm not saying that he's not at this point, but it just kind of tampers this relationship between him and the organization a little bit. And I think it's starting to become a distraction. You see even some of his players are kind of questioning
Tony Parker,
his durability and his willingness to just play through an injury if it's not that serious. And I don't know. It just seems like too much of a distraction for this team. The Spurs always can figure out a way to rebuild their team. They do it all the time.
I mean, when you're trading a guy like a Kawhi Leonard, you expect to get an absolute haul. I mean, the Pistons gave up a lottery pick, a second-round pick, a budding star in Tobias, an expiring contract in Avery Bradley, and a filler in Boban for a guy on an atrocious contract that nobody else would have traded for.
Yeah, on his way down from his prime.
Exactly. Lake's a stud player, but he's nowhere near what he used to be and nowhere near the type of talent that Kawhi Leonard is. Basing it off that, if you can get 2 first-round picks, you need to get at least an all-star level back, in my opinion, and probably another young chip. And rebuild the right way around Dejounte Murray. And that if you trade Kawhi Leonard, I wonder if they look at maybe moving a LaMarcus Aldridge just because they may go into that more of a full rebuild instead of a retooling.
I don't know, because
and there's questions about Popovich now too, because I mean, with all the Popovich stuff going on, we didn't know how long he would be coaching as well. Does this unfortunate event affect his future coaching the Spurs?
Right. Or does it make him want to coach more? Because I think a lot of the reason that he wanted to stop coaching was to be with his family a lot more. I don't know if that changes it. I know he has kids, but maybe they're definitely at their own age where they have their own lives. So I don't know if he can necessarily be with them all the time, but it might even turn it the opposite where he wants to coach more. But a lot of the talk with Kawhi recently has been about the Lakers. And is there a possibility of him and LeBron now? Instead of LeBron and Paul George, now it's LeBron and Kawhi. Can they go together to LA? And if the Spurs can figure out a deal with the Lakers have tons and tons of potential stars that you could grab from them.
There's two teams to me that I'm going to keep an eye on in the Kawhi sweepstakes if it turns out they are open to trading him.
Right.
The Miami Heat and Philadelphia 76ers. The Sixers have tons of assets still.
Right.
Low cap space, or a good amount of cap space to take in Kawhi's contract and to offer him an extension. And Miami, they have, I believe, there's 2 first-round picks. They have you can offer a couple picks. You have a Goran Dragic, a Justice Winslow, pieces that would look good to R.C. Buford, the GM of the Spurs, if they want to retool instead of rebuild. So those are 2 teams that I'll keep an eye on. Piston? No.
I still kind of like the idea of the Lakers, only because for the Spurs, they would get a guy.
Would the Lakers trade Lonzo Ball? Yeah, you have to. Yeah.
If Kawhi Leonard's on the table,
trade Lonzo Ball. Yeah,
but a lot of the
question.
talk has been about Julius Randle and his late surge.
If I'm the Spurs, I ask for Lonzo Ball right away. I mean, you're getting if you're the Laker or if you're the San Antonio and you're trading Kawhi to LA, I'm getting Lonzo Ball. I'm getting Kuzma. I'm getting your pick this year. Probably another pick.
So you're giving up on DeJounte Murray?
I'll let it fall where they may. I mean, you have let's just say for the sake of everything that Pop's coaching, that's just a battle. That's a point guard battle. Those 2 guys are 2 young guys under contract. They have no say in what they can do.
Right.
They got to report to the team. Or if Lonzo doesn't report to the team, he is threatening his basketball career.
True.
Especially for the San Antonio Spurs. So I think that would be really interesting. Just something to look into.
Right.
Let's move on, though. Let's get into the other playoff matchups in the West. Let's break. All right, let's save the Jazz Thunder for the last one we break down the West.
That's a big one
Pelicans
for me.
Sweeping the Portland Trailblazers.
I'll be honest,
man.
as big of a Pelicans fan as I am,
I did not see that coming, man.
And I'm not a bandwagon fan. There's been a lot of talk about bandwagon fans. So let me get this straight. Chris, can you confirm that I've been a Pelicans fan for
there's been issues.
for a good
People
run?
have called you a bandwagon fan, Joe?
No, not me directly. I'm just saying that when the Pelicans swept, there was a lot of talk of who is jumping on the bandwagon. I'm not jumping on the bandwagon. I've already been on it for a long time, and I just want to confirm
you have.
I've been on the bandwagon.
You've been on the Anthony Davis. You've been riding his coattails through and through.
And as soon as I saw them get Rondo, I thought that it was a great pickup for them. They needed a more veteran point guard. It moves Drew Holiday to more of his natural position, which I think is the shooting guard.
You know, I did not think his natural position was shooting guard, but the more I watch him play next to Rajon Rondo, it fits him perfectly.
Right. And
he should get some recognition for defensive player of the year. He should get some third place votes.
Yeah.
He absolutely
has definitely put
Damian.
his stock up there for
he is one of the best He's one of the best two-way players in the NBA.
Yep.
And at the two-guard spot, he's past Avery Bradley, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Who else is in that two-guard spot that can...
And he's bigger than Avery Bradley, too,
bigger.
so he's a little bit longer.
Would you consider Jimmy Butler a 2 or a 3?
I would consider him a 2.
Okay. So I'd say he's right next to Jimmy. I think Jimmy's a notch above, but...
Right. Drew Holiday has definitely proved his contract was worth it at this point.
Yeah,
and he's making the Pelicans look really good about it. The other big pickup, like we talked about, Mirotic looked really good.
Fantastic.
He had a 30-point game in the one game.
And he actually didn't even play all too well. Like, all his shots weren't falling. He had one really good game, but other than that, it was just him spacing the floor for the Pelicans and being that perimeter threat that Drew could kick, Rajon could kick to, and with AD being a monster all over the court.
Yeah, he was a man on a mission. And I want to bring up the point, is there a way that they beat the Warriors?
I think it...
Because the matchup is interesting. You have Drew Holiday and Klay Thompson, two of the best, as you said, two-way players in the league. Klay Thompson, don't forget, is a great defender himself, also a great offensive player. He's right on par. He's a better offensive player than Drew. The defensive end, man, it's pretty close too.
I think it warrants a discussion.
So it would be a good matchup there.
What is the matchup?
Anthony Davis and Kevin Durant, they could guard each other. I don't know if it'll happen a
It'll
lot.
be AD Draymond. It won't be
Right,
Anthony.
but I'm just thinking if AD gets Draymond, I don't think Draymond can.
I don't think Draymond can handle
can
it.
guard
Anthony
him
Davis.
well enough. That's why I think you would go with the longer Durant. I know Anthony Davis has packed on some pounds lately, so he's a lot stronger. But just the length, maybe. But that's going to be really hard. The only thing.
I wonder if they go JaVale McGee early to see how that works.
It could be. He looked pretty good in that first round at times.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't play too many minutes.
Right.
Um,
But that's going to be a
Kevon
tough.
Looney's looked good too.
That's going to be a really interesting matchup. If Steph Curry comes back, I think the Warriors are fine.
Yes,
but
there is question that
a
he will be
big
back. If he's not back in the semis, I say Warriors scrape by in 7.
Yeah,
if he's not back,
it'll be really close because
these Pelicans are serious. Playoff Rondo is a real thing.
I tried to tell you 2 weeks ago. I said it. Playoff Rondo is back.
It's a real thing. I got to give you credit.
Mirotic, again, he spreads that floor. So it's
Etuan Moore has been fantastic from the perimeter as well.
Their role players are stepped up. They finally have Solomon Hill back as well.
And Solomon's not the good. I mean, he's fine for spot 15 minutes.
I mean, hey, he came back from injury though, but
yeah,
he was doing pretty well before the injury. But their role players have definitely stepped up, and this will be a very exciting series. I think. I don't know. Man, I want to pick the Pelicans.
I mean, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We're going to break down the series that was the Pelicans-Blazers, and we're just jumping into Pelicans.
Oh, I mean, there's not
Warriors.
much to talk about. Like you said, like Lillard got locked up by Drew Holiday this whole series.
Yeah, he did, and McCollum didn't play the greatest. I mean, he had a good game 4, but the series was all but over by then.
And the Blazers' lack of depth was kind of a problem.
Yep.
I thought that their depth would have been a little bit better, but they didn't show up.
Since there clearly isn't that much to talk about in the series, since it was pretty lopsided, this is the last we see of the Trailblazers, who had a very good season. I think they finished with 49 wins on the year.
Yeah, I believe so.
3rd seed in the Western Conference. They were expected to make a little bit of noise. I think they caught a bad matchup with the Blazers.
Yes,
I think
definitely.
if they play OKC, it's a different series.
Yeah, because their bigs are not as near as talented as Anthony Davis.
Yeah, and I just think it was a bad matchup. But if you're the Blazers front office, do you move away from Terry Stotts as your head coach? That's my first question.
That's usually the go-to.
There's rumbles that they are. There's rumblings that Terry Stotts is on his way out.
Right, and that's usually, like I said, that's usually the go-to. I don't necessarily know that it's the coaching issue, but usually when you want to get to a point where you want to start a rebuild, you're going to change the coach out first and see if you can.
Do you think they're going to start a rebuild?
I think they might. It's really
Before
hard.
you go any further, I'm just going to jump to my serious question here that I was going to build up to, but I want to get right to it because I think you're going to answer it right now. Do you separate Lillard and McCollum this summer?
I think you throw it out there. I don't know if you necessarily do it, but
Let's say
you take some offers.
Let's say a certain Stan Van Gundy, you just ring, ring. Hey, Portland, we got this big man. Most rebounds in the NBA since Dennis Rodman.
If we're getting Damian Lillard or CJ McCollum, I say yes.
Well, I'm saying does Portland say yes to McCollum, Evan Turner, Andre Drummond, Luke Kennard, and a pick?
I like my boy Luke, though.
But you're adding CJ McCollum.
Right.
And that CJ probably would be. Would he play Would you play him next to Reggie, or would you make CJ your lead guard and maybe move Reggie? Because I think CJ would play really well as your lead guard, as your point guard making all the decisions. Yeah, he's a scorer mentality, but so is Damian. Damian has that scorer's mentality.
Maybe. I don't know if we've ever really seen CJ in that situation too often.
I think if Portland makes any of their 2 available, somebody should jump on this. It's kind of like...
Oh, I'm pretty sure somebody will.
Well, yeah, but it reminds me of the OKC James Harden situation. You could get not MVP. I'm not going to jump out and say CJ's an MVP caliber, but he's that all-star caliber
talent
guy that could push you over the edge. Reggie's a solid player, but you see how good the Pistons are with a solid point guard? You put CJ McCollum there with Blake Griffin, you'd have to figure out your center position, but, I mean, centers in the NBA are a dime a dozen.
Right.
I would be interested. And I think fans would pay to see that. See, you build your arena, you build your marketing around a CJ McCollum, Blake Griffin duo. I think fans buy into that. And the Pistons do have another pick they could throw. I mean, they clearly don't care about the NBA draft. So
obviously, the hardest part though is moving Andre. Obviously, I'm for it, but the regular Pistons fan that just wants to go to game, they're probably going to be against moving Drummond because he's like,
I don't think so.
He's like the people's guy.
No, I don't think people, from what I hear from just average fans that don't really pay that much attention to the team, but will if they're good, they don't like Andre. They think he just doesn't try very much, which wasn't the case this season. I think he just gets a bad rap.
I think he's shown signs of it, of seeming like he doesn't care.
Yeah, but
times.
I think that was years before. I think this year he did a pretty good job of that, of not doing that. But I think if you somehow, some way, traded for a guy like CJ McCollum, and I don't think it's out. I might sound crazy by the start of the 2018-19 season, but I think it's a possibility the Pistons could get involved in a McCollum trade. I think they have some pieces that would interest Portland if they look to retool with Lillard. And I think if you sell Portland on a Lillard-Drummond pick and roll, I think they kind of buy into that because Nurkic just isn't that type of dude. Nurkic is a back-to-the-basket post dude. He's not really a shot blocker, which Andre is starting to become. And he's not the rebounder that Andre Drummond is.
Right.
It's just something to think about. If CJ's the Piston next year, though, I told you guys. But if he's not, don't worry about it.
And then you have CJ and Bullock that shoot really good from beyond the arc. So
yeah. Let's not get my hopes up because this is too early to get my hopes up for another star in Detroit, which probably won't happen. Let's move on to the series in the Western Conference we really want to talk about. Those Utah Jazz and the Oklahoma City Thunder, who, by the way, had another thriller game last night. If you didn't catch it,
I was mad because it was on NBA TV.
How is that the game on NBA TV?
I don't know, because I was really disgusted because I came home, grabbed some food. I was like, all right, let's watch the playoffs. And then I realized, oh, wait, OKC and the Jazz, a crucial game, is on NBA TV.
Yeah, I understand it's win or go home for the Wolves, but we all knew the Wolves were going home after that one. It was a blunder by TNT.
I know it's mostly because of the Utah market.
I don't think, honestly, I think it was just because it was a 1-8 matchup. I think the 4-5 matchup tends to get that NBA TV niche. But yeah, man, fantastic series. Utah was up 71-46 in Oklahoma City. It looked like OKC was packing their bags, getting ready for their trips to Punta Cana, off to Hawaii.
Disappointing.
But Russell Westbrook dropped a 45-burger on him. Was it 15 rebounds, 7 assists, and willed the Thunder to a Game 6.
And he only shot like 40%. That was what was upsetting. That people gave him all this praise.
It's Russell, dude.
I think he
shot a lot.
I think he shot 17 for 39. So it's not terrible. And
stop hating. You're a Kobe fan. You should not hate on that.
The funny thing too is that Kobe shot a lot of bad percentages. I mean,
that's what I'm saying. Don't hate on Russell for
but I'm just
bad
saying.
Percentages.
So the thing that upset me the most was seeing the stat sheet after the game. Russell Westbrook was, I believe, 17 for 49 or 39, and Paul George was, I think, 13 of 26. I think he shot pretty well. They shot combined 65 shots or something like that, and as a team they shot 89. So those two guys.
Yeah, so it was 26 shot attempts for Paul George, 39 for Russell. Makes out to a beautiful 65 shots for those two.
Like, that is unbelievable, and you lose to that.
Melo had 6 shots.
2 guys, yeah. Melo has been shooting pretty poorly in this series.
Melo only played 25 minutes last night. I think they start to go away from Melo a little
Westbrook
bit.
And Paul George did everything. I couldn't believe when I saw it that the Jazz lost that game. And I think in the first quarter, when I looked up the box score, Jay Crowder already had like 3 threes. In the first half, he had like 20 points or something.
He had like 15 points in 8 minutes.
Yeah.
To start off the game.
Insane. I was like, oh, here we go. The Jazz are going to run away with it. And then down the stretch, Donovan Mitchell struggled. Ricky Rubio struggled, at least shooting-wise. And somehow, some way, the Thunder came back, which I was upset. But I wasn't too upset because that means that the next game is televised.
Yeah, it'll be on
watch.
ESPN on Friday night. Of course, it's a 10:30 game, but
Well, it's a Friday night. What else? All right. Well,
Sorry
maybe
for-
you got to work on the
I
weekend.
actually don't have to work Saturday.
Okay.
I work in the morning on Friday, so we're good to go. But for the people that have to work Saturday mornings, I feel bad.
Okay. True.
But yeah,
I love so the thing that I love the most about this series
Yeah,
is
well-
how gritty it is. Like
That-
they are playing some old school, just in your face basketball.
when you bring that up, a lot of these series have been very chippy. I think this is one of the best first round series in the NBA playoffs we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, I think the playoffs have been really good so far.
Like, let me go through the list here. Rockets Wolves was chippy for a couple games. Warriors Spurs, I don't think really was. Jazz Thunder, yes.
Cavs Pacers a little bit,
Pelicans Blazers a little bit.
right?
Raps Wizards has been chippy the whole
Yeah.
way through. Boston and Milwaukee, I can't think of anything. It may have been a little chippy, but Philly Miami was chippy too.
Yeah.
So we're a lot of physicality, a lot of that old school taste to all of these old heads like me and you watching the NBA. It's good to see. It really is.
Yeah, and I don't know. This series is really making me. I already not the biggest Russell Westbrook fan. I don't know if you could
I think you're a Russell hater.
feel that out, but this series has made me not like him more, and a lot of it is just from the way that he reacts to a lot of the chippiness, and the way that he comes back at it. And he tends to be one of those guys that when he gets upset, he doesn't play very well. Like he'll just throw the ball up and he'll struggle. I think you saw it in, was it game 4? That it got real chippy and they had like 6 technical fouls in the game.
Yeah, that was it. Yep.
And Jay Crowder ended up getting ejected for the elbow.
The elbow was
Yeah, I don't
inadvertent,
think
though.
it
It
was-
was meant for like Melo get off of me.
Right.
and
They kind of
Stevens
just had
took
to eject him anyways because of the rules. But
I think they ejected him just because the game was out of hand and they just didn't want to deal with it.
Right.
I think if it's a close game, Jay's still in the game.
But in that game, like Westbrook got pretty chippy and like kind of, I don't know. It was
He was chippy with Rubio.
Right.
'Cause Rubio lit him up for that triple double in game 3, and he was like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna guarantee I shut that down. And he really didn't.
No, he didn't. And that's where I said he struggled from the field in that game a lot. And I don't know, is it? I hate to
What?
I hate to give this hot take, but I think Russell Westbrook is overrated. Just because
He's averaged a triple double for 2 straight seasons, Joe.
I know. And so that's my other big thing is how is it that all of a sudden triple doubles are a big deal in the NBA?
Did you
When
see Mike-
like for a long time, triple doubles didn't happen very often. Now all of a sudden you have guys doing it on a nightly basis. That seems really odd to me.
It's because the NBA doesn't allow much hand checking anymore. I think it all comes down to that hand checking rule because you have a lot more fouls. You have a lot more opportunities for rebounds, a lot more opportunities to score. So you have more opportunities for stats.
And that's my big thing too is that I think rebounds as a whole are very overrated in the NBA.
I think offensive rebounds is.
Yes. Offensive rebounds, yes, those are important. I think you should look at those. But defensive rebounds, anybody that wants a defensive rebound can go get one. That's why you see guys like Rondo getting triple doubles. Westbrook, he tries a little bit harder, but like if you put forth the effort to get a defensive rebound, you can get a defensive rebound. And going back to like the style of play, a lot of these teams are letting their point guard get rebounds so they can just run it up the floor. The assist numbers also are kind of up because of the style of play, the spacing. And I don't know, I don't know. I think he's a little bit overrated because he has a lot of turnovers. Like he doesn't handle the ball all that well. He still doesn't shoot the ball all that great, although he has gotten better. Yeah. Play the boo. I'm ready. I'm ready. Russell Westbrook is a little bit overrated. I think he's a great athletic talent. He's skilled. Obviously, he's one of the best players in the league.
I love that you knew that was coming.
But I think that he just gets too much credit. And I think honestly, in some of these games, he has hurt his team in a lot of these games. Not this last game, obviously, because down the stretch he played really well.
If it's not for Russell, they're out.
For the overall, he struggled in that game from the field. But down the stretch, he played really well. But I think, like I said, a lot of the times in this series alone, the emotions has gotten to him a little too much, and it has made him play worse. You see Joe Ingles is getting in his head. Like,
No. Joe
Come
Ingles is
on.
getting in Paul George's head, and that was absolutely fantastic. That was one of my favorite parts of this NBA playoffs so far.
It's hilarious.
Him staring down Paul George after every triple, and it just made my night. It was so awesome. Shout
And-
out Joe Ingles.
Like, even Ricky Rubio getting a little bit physical. My favorite part, too, about the whole thing, that Donovan Mitchell is leading the team in the offensive end, and he just laughs at every time that the two players will go at it from both teams. He'll just laugh, and then he'll go over to his teammate, like Joe Ingles will say something, and then he'll go over and he'll just smile and pat him on the back, and he's just a really cheery guy.
I actually saw Donovan talk his first little bit of trash for the first time leaving Game 5 in OKC. He told fans, "We'll see you guys next year." Like, they're not coming back for Game 7. It's done. I thought that was cool.
Yeah, he's having a good time with it,
Yeah.
and he's played really well.
Rookie of the year?
Malik was kind of right.
Then Malik, no. If you're listening to this, Malik, you weren't right, okay? You weren't.
I mean, he was right in the stats category.
I wonder if he picked the Thunder. I think he picked the Thunder to win the series. Let's get to that real quick because we spent a lot of time on that series there. Who you got? What's the end game here for the Jazz Thunder series?
I think the Jazz will finish it off.
So you got Jazz in 6?
Yep.
Same. I got Jazz in 6. And then that leaves. Do you think we got any major changes coming to OKC, or do you think that OK3 is coming back next year? I think Carmelo's gone.
Yeah, and I
think there's
I
a
question
possibility
how
PG's out.
Yeah, I question how Paul George feels about the whole
I think Paul's just being a good teammate
this whole
right now.
team.
I think he's just being good up until it's time to take care of himself. I think
Right.
this summer he will look long and hard at leaving OKC,
Right.
especially if it ends in the first round.
Yeah. So I definitely see this team kind of breaking apart. It didn't work out as well. Obviously, part of it is the Thunder have no depth whatsoever. Even people are talking about even if Andre Roberson came back, that he would be a big improvement for this team.
I don't think he would.
Yeah, I don't think he would either. I don't think he matches up necessarily well against the Jazz, as good of a defender as he is.
He chokes at the line in the playoffs. I mean,
Right, you can just foul him. So
yeah, let's move on though. Let's get to the Eastern Conference. We only got about 20 minutes left in the show, and we have to break down all the Eastern Conference. Let's start with Philly. That series is over. That's the only Eastern Conference series done. Philly won that series over the Miami Heat 4-1. It seemed a lot closer. I picked Philly in 7 to start. Can Philly challenge for that East crown this year? Do they have a realistic possibility of making the NBA Finals?
yes, because I picked them to make the NBA Finals, so that's why I got to go with it. But
Well,
they look really good.
I think they realistically do, because I think they're in the best part of the bracket to play the winner of Boston-Milwaukee, who I don't think compared to Philly with
Nope.
how they're playing right now. And then Cleveland is not the Cleveland Cavaliers that we've known for the past 3 years. They're not.
They're struggling. The Raptors we thought would turn the page and
I think
do better
Toronto's
this year,
the
but
only team that can give them a run for their money.
but I
honestly.
still think they're showing a lot of weakness against the Wizards, which I didn't think the Wizards would really have any fight in them, but they've taken
I thought
it
they
to
were
the
done
Raptors
after.
a couple
Yeah, I
games.
thought they were done after 2. And
So-
Wizards almost sneaked out that Game 5 when they ended up losing 108-98 in Toronto. But yeah, Phil, do you think they can challenge for the East Crown? So you're buying into the hype.
Oh yeah, I think like we've said it multiple times. Like the addition just of Marco Bellinelli, I think was huge for
I
this
think
team.
Ersan was one of the biggest.
Right, he's another one just to give that extra spacing for Ben Simmons.
And always have a guy like a JJ Redick on the court. Like, I'm not comparing Marco to the same caliber as JJ, but he's like a poor man's JJ Redick for your bench.
Right.
He
Well,
just
and,
runs the same offense that
and
JJ
in some
does.
games recently, he's played a lot better than JJ Redick. JJ Redick has been
I
a
feel
little
like
bit inconsistent down the stretch, but obviously he's
JJ has more. The defense is aware of JJ more, so they are of Marco Bellinelli.
right.
But yeah, so Philly moving on to the semis. Still play the winner of the Boston-Milwaukee series. And then let's go up to the top. Let's start with that Raptors-Wizards. They're up 3-2 right now, going back to D.C. When is that? That game is Friday, I believe.
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yep. Because the only
yep,
game tonight is the Bucks and Celtics.
which is unfortunate, but yeah. Yep, Game 6, and that's an NBA TV game, of course.
Awesome.
Raptors-Wizards. Do you think Washington can pull out a Game 6 win? I feel like Toronto always struggles in these first-round series, man.
Yeah, I think the Wizards could definitely push them to 7. It obviously is going to depend if Bradley Beal or John Wall has a big night, but I think that's all it's going to take, actually, is one of them to have a big night, and I think that the Wizards would have a chance. They've looked really good. They're playing more as a team than we thought they might, as earlier in the season would indicate. And the Raptors are still the same old Raptors somehow in the playoffs, and they can't.
At least they're taking care of home court, though. That's the
Right.
biggest part.
I don't know if there's some weird mental block with this team, but
They look better than years past. The fact that they won a game one was a huge step, and
Right.
it's kind of sad to say it, but yeah. I'm picking Toronto to finish the series in 6. I think they go to DC, they deal with their demons, and they finish the Wizards. And that leaves another big question, another backcourt question. Are you expecting the Wizards to beat the Raptors this series?
no.
I am not expecting them to win either. Do you think Washington entertains that same thought that Portland might? Do they break up John Wall and Bradley Beal?
I think they're more likely to.
You think
with-
that's the team that's more likely?
Yeah,
to?
with all the drama that's gone on.
And it seems
in
like
that
teammates
team-
don't like John Wall.
Right. So I feel like that's a similar situation to the Kawhi Leonard thing where you're starting to have this distraction. And I think the Wizards have it worse, where the John Wall thing has kind of been going on this whole season.
I mean, what did the Wizards finish? 43-39.
yeah.
And John Wall was healthy for that second half of the year, and it's very unfortunate with how they've played, with the amount of talent that they have. I mean, you have an all-star backcourt. John Wall can challenge years. In some certain years, he can challenge for the MVP award. He's that talented of a player. You have Marcin Gortat. Yeah, he's getting old. I think that's where they need to make improvement up front.
Markieff Morris stayed healthy.
Markieff stayed healthy. He's a solid power forward. They gave up a lottery pick for Markieff Morris. I'm not sure I would have done that. But
Right. He's shown signs in the past of being good. I don't think he's ever going to make it past that.
Otto
but-
Porter's had a huge
Right.
year 3.
Yeah.
And then you have Kelly Oubre, who's making big strides too. So there's a lot of talent on this team, and for them to be an 8 seed is very disappointing. This is definitely a team you'll see some turnover, I feel like, and maybe some major turnover. If you're Washington, Joey, who do you pick between? Because you have to pick between one or the other, because I feel like John Wall and Bradley Beal are the two that butt heads the most. Who do you keep on this Washington team?
I always like to keep shooters. I'm going to go with Bradley Beal.
Really?
Yeah, I
would pick John Wall.
I think that, like you said, though, the talent pool that the Wizards have is pretty good. So trying to keep that talent pool together
But
is
the NBA is a point guard league. It's
Right,
led
but-
by point guards.
But there's also, since it's a point guard lead, it's also pretty point guard heavy. There's a lot of talent
If you insert,
within the NBA that you can go out and get.
but not John Wall level talent. Let's say you insert a Reggie Jackson into John Wall. You think they're winning more games?
Probably not. But it depends on what else they get, because they're not going to just do. It's not going to be John Wall for Reggie Jackson, obviously.
Yeah. Washington,
And
if you want to do that, man.
And I mean, if John Wall is he's the main issue, that's what you want to get rid of. Because if you think that he's not being the leader that you want him to be, or he doesn't mesh well with the team, it's easier to get rid of one player than possibly multiple.
Fair point. Fair point. See, I tend to lean more so towards the talent. If the talent is better in one direction, I'll lean that way, especially in the NBA where talent rules everything. And that John Wall is a point guard, and this is a point guard league. That's why I would go keep John Wall, trade Beal. That's just my opinion. I think it's really interesting. That's another really interesting team to look at this summer. I think Washington, Portland, San Antonio, and Miami are 4 playoff teams that we can see big turnover or big changes, whether it's the coaching, front office, or personnel. But yeah, so Joey and I picking the Raptors to win that series. You got Raptors in 7 or 6?
I think 7.
All right. Moving on, the Boston Celtics and the Milwaukee Bucks. I picked the Bucks in 6 in this one. I think Milwaukee still can win the series. They have the talent. They're going back home. I fully expect Milwaukee to beat Boston tonight. I truly do. I think Boston's just not deep enough to win a decisive game on the road in that type of atmosphere. And Giannis is going to be juiced. I think this is a big game for his career. This is a big game. And you have the guys like Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe's finally starting to go a little bit. What's your take with this series, Joe? What have you seen? What have you heard? And what do you think will happen?
Boston's look a lot better than I thought they would. Even though I picked Boston still to win the series, I had one of those weird feelings. I just felt like Boston could win this. and they're making me believe it because Jaylen Brown has had a huge series. I think he's really stepped up. A lot of these younger guys for Boston have looked really good. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown. Terry Rozier has been a little bit spotty, whereas he was really good
hot early.
running down the end of the season. So it's interesting to see how they've kept their team afloat. And I thought that the Celtics would have to utilize Greg Monroe a little bit more for this series as more of a veteran guy now and kind of a back-to-the-basket kind of player to match up against the Bucks. They haven't really used him a whole lot.
See, I don't think Greg really fits because when the Bucks roll with a Thon Maker at the 5 or a John Henson at the 5.
That's true. They did. That's what they did. They countered with Thon Maker, and he's actually looked pretty good.
Yeah, Thon's look solid. Greg can't get a shot over on him. Greg, he's got the tools, as in the post-game tools. He's just not gifted athletically. And I think Milwaukee is a team of all athletes. And it's just a bad matchup for Greg Monroe. I think if they advance to the next round, you could see Greg Monroe a little bit more. Yeah, Philly has a lot of athletes as well, but you also have an Ersan Ilyasova and Amir Johnson, guys like that Greg can kind of use his post moves a little bit more against. So you got who do you have?
Boston.
You got Boston tonight, and you think they're going to win Game 6 tonight?
I think they have to, actually. I think if they're going to win this series, it's got to be tonight.
No. You think Milwaukee's going to go into the Garden? And when that's how I'm picking. I mean, I have to pick them. I have to respect my pick of Bucks. But it's going to be tough, man.
Right,
in the Garden,
obviously.
That crowd. I'm not sure I believe my pick.
But again, I think the Bucks, man, I don't know. It could be good if it goes to 7. But I don't know. I just have a weird feeling that the Celtics are going to win this series, and I think it'll be tonight if they're going to do it.
Fair enough. The winner of this series will play Philadelphia, and Philly will host. They are the 2 seed, winning 52 games this season. And let's get into our last playoff matchup, the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Indiana Pacers, which has been a fantastic series as well. Cleveland just took their first series lead last night off the LeBron game winner. Looked like Jordan over Craig Elo in Cleveland. Did you see the video that SportsCenter put out?
No.
So they put them side by side. And it really, from the angle, I think it was like the baseline angle, it looked eerily similar.
Really?
Because LeBron's was a 3, but you can't really tell the distance from that camera angle. It really looked like Jordan over Elo, and this time it pays off for Cleveland. Really cool video. Check it out if you haven't. I think if Indiana was going to win this series, which I've been rooting for Indiana to win. Everybody knows my despite for Cleveland. I'm sorry if there's Cleveland fans listening. It's just LeBron did to me in 2000.
We're Detroit fans. Come on.
Well, LeBron did me dirty in 2007, Game 5, Palace of Auburn Hills. Look it up if you haven't heard that.
And he had a worse team than he does now.
Yeah, I don't want to talk. That was a bad time in my life. But yeah, Indiana, I think they had to win Game 4. They were up 2-1 in the series. They had, I forget how that game finished. I think it was close. Lance Stevenson had the opportunity to go for a steal. He got the jump ball. Then the refs overturned it for a hostile act because I think he elbowed, who was it? It wasn't LeBron. It was like J.R. Smith or someone in the head. So it got overturned and the game was over. But I think if Indiana was going to pull off the upset, which would have been the biggest upset, I think, in sports.
Right.
Because
see LeBron go out in the first round.
Potentially one of the greatest player of all time, potentially, to go out in the first round after he's made the NBA Finals 7 straight years.
Against a Pacers team that was criticized for getting rid of their superstar, Paul George.
And against everybody who hates on the NBA saying the NBA is such a top-heavy league. If Cleveland went out in the first round, that switches up the game.
Right.
But I think Cleveland's going to finish the series off in 6, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think even bigger was losing last night. Obviously, that's a huge loss for the Pacers. They needed to win Game 4, like you said, or Game 5. Game 4 was probably more winnable. Somehow they couldn't stop Kyle Korver.
Korver got hot late. LeBron found him on a couple good curls.
Which for me doesn't make any sense because if you see a guy like Kyle Korver and you know what he does, that's how he plays, and he's hot, stop the guy.
I mean, Indiana has
focus your defense on that and LeBron.
Indiana has had a chance in every single game. I mean, they won by 18 in game 1.
They've given up a lot of leads. Like, Cleveland has had to battle back in a lot of these games.
But Cleveland has lost a lot of leads as well. This has been a very back and forth series. Indiana had a chance to. Victor Oladipo had a 3-point opportunity to tie the game in game 2. He missed it. Cleveland got the rebound. That was over. 1-1 series. And then Indiana, behind the heroics of Bojan Bogdanovic. That dude was raining threes from everywhere.
Lit LeBron up.
He did, and it was fantastic to see. The crowd was going insane. It was an awesome playoff atmosphere in Indiana. Indiana loves themselves some good basketball. It's good to see that state, especially a team you had zero expectations for coming into the season, to completely turn the game on its heels and challenge LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then game 4, Cavs stole, like we said, LeBron 32, 13, and 7. They won by 4. And then game 5, was it a goaltend, Joe? It was really close. From all the angles I saw, it was really close.
I don't know.
I say yes.
As a LeBron hater, I would like to say yes.
Wait. You would like to say yeah? Okay.
But
I think it was from. If I had to make a decision, I'd say it was a goaltend. To me, in that position, if you're an official, you blow your whistle so you can look at it.
Right.
I'm surprised they did, because usually that's what they do. That's the protocol they go with.
Right.
I'm very surprised they did not do that.
Yeah, that was the biggest thing. Is like, you got to get it right. So you got to at least make sure.
And the NBA has put forth so many rules to give the referees opportunity to fix these things.
Right.
And when the refs don't use that opportunity, I mean, the Pacers have all the right to be very upset. Right. Even though LeBron hit a 3, but pressure's different when you're down 97-95. Pressure's different. The play you design is different. You never know what could happen if that shot actually counted.
Right.
It was very unfortunate for Indiana, because if they steal that win, they have that possibility. I think they have a chance to win the series. Now they don't. I think it's done. Put a fork in them.
Yeah, I think a lot of their mental fortitude has probably gone away, unless Victor Oladipo wants to become a man possessed even more than he
only
already
had 12
has.
points last game.
Yeah, he was shut down a lot. I think Sabonis was their leading scorer with 22 last night, which for this team is not good, because they kind of lack scoring a little bit besides Victor Oladipo, Bogdanovic. Their other guys are kind of like, they have a lot of role players that are very good, but we'll have to see Victor Oladipo go off in this game, or Bogdanovic tomorrow. Miles Turner, maybe.
I want to get your final thoughts on this series. Are you picking Cleveland?
I don't want to. I think I picked them, though, originally, and now that they won, like you said, Game 5, it would be amazing if Indiana came back and won this series, but I can't see it happening. Even if they win this Game 6 and you go to Game 7, like,
there's still Game 7
that
in
is
LeBron's
so
house.
hard to play against.
So you're picking Cavs in 6 or 7?
Let's go 7 for the fun.
All right. That's kind of the wrap-up of the playoff push right now. I know last time we were on the air, we had to, make predictions for playoff series, so it wasn't really realistic. Unless you have something you want to bring up, Joe. You have anything?
Pelicans won.
What? Yeah, they won. Yeah, we know that, Joe. But do you have any talking points you want to bring up, or is it okay to move on with this?
No, I think we hit everything. It's going to be a good finish to these Eastern Conference playoffs. Thunder Jazz, obviously, I'll be watching every minute of it. Before
we go, I do want to get an updated prediction, because we had to use kind of a makeshift bracket last time, and it wasn't true predictions. We think Utah's winning in the OKC matchup, right? So
yeah,
Houston, Utah. You picking the Jazz or Rockets? That's interesting. That's tough.
Yeah, because the Jazz have looked, like I said,
I think that's
really
a
gritty
series.
They've looked a lot better than even I thought. They looked good all season.
The best defense against the best offense would be super fun to watch.
Right, and I'm trying to think the matchups. Man, that's tough. I think James Harden, though, looks pretty good in this series.
What's your Western Conference Finals?
I'm going to go with the Rockets Pelicans.
Stop it, Joe.
I'm going to get back on it because I picked the Warriors to go all the way. I think I picked Warriors Sixers in the NBA Finals.
That's
But
your take.
After
Down the toilet.
After I watched the Pelicans in this first round, I know this is a bandwagon thing because they played the Blazers, who I really don't think are a super good team.
But they did
but
sweep them.
The Pelicans looked really good.
Rockets.
I think they can give the Warriors a run because the Warriors looked a little bit shaky at times.
Joey is picking the Pelicans to upset the reigning NBA champions in the semis. All right.
Here we go. Let's do it.
All right. So, Joey, then you got the Rockets in the NBA final. Please don't tell me you're picking the Pelicans in the NBA
Rockets and the Pelicans? Oh, boy. Well, if the Pelicans beat the Warriors,
Joe.
Pelicans all the way, baby.
No.
Pelicans, Sixers, NBA Finals. You heard it here first.
Who do you have winning the NBA finals? Why are you making
Pelicans, Sixers? Who wins? Oh, my gosh.
Trust the
That
process?
is a good matchup. I'd probably pick the Sixers, though, actually, in that matchup.
You heard it here first, guy. I'm sorry you guys have to listen to this abysmal take. Joey has the Philadelphia 76ers over your New Orleans Pelicans in the NBA Finals, which will never happen. Realistically, I'll give you my take here. It's going to be Houston Golden State in the conference finals.
Okay.
Give me the Warriors. And then it's going to be Toronto, Philadelphia in the conference finals in the East. Give me Toronto, and then a Warriors sweep in the NBA Finals. That's NBA realistic.
Let me put an asterisk on the Warriors-Pelicans series.
No,
like I said,
no,
Steph
no.
Curry is a big deal.
Fine. All right, let's say Steph's back in Game 5. Let's say he's back 5th game of the series. Warriors still winning the series?
What are the Pelicans up?
They're up 3-2.
Up 3-2? Oh, then the Warriors will win.
Or it's 2-2, actually, if it comes back for Game 5.
Oh, yeah, the Warriors will win.
All right.
I think if Steph Curry comes back,
But you're picking
unless the Pelicans are like 3-0, which I don't even believe that, the Warriors are winning.
All right.
But if they don't have Steph Curry, watch out. I'm telling you, you heard it here first.
I mean, you did pick Michigan early. I'm not gonna. You did. All right, that's our show today. Just a little quick drop on the coaching carousel. We got a couple minutes here. JB Bickerstaff, an assistant from Memphis, he looks like he is going to become the head coach for the Memphis Grizzlies. Mike Budenholzer and the Atlanta Hawks have parted ways officially, so Budenholzer is looking for a new gig. It's said that his dream job is New York. New York is still interviewing candidates. They've gone to Europe to interview Sir David Blatt, so that's interesting. No update yet on the Detroit Pistons. I know they did come out and say Stan Van Gundy and Goris had their first set of meetings on Monday. No rhyme or reason to which way it's going. The more it sounds like Stan's staying and there's no change to me.
Right.
Especially if we're 3 days after that and we still have heard nothing.
Yeah.
So that's about it for your NBA update. This has been the playoff push on Views from the Sideline. Joey, awesome takes.
Pelicans, Sixers.
We'll see you guys next week, episode 16. Stay tuned.
Bye.